If the heater in your vehicle is not blowing out warm enough air, like mine wasn't on my 2009 Jeep here, you might have a stopped up heater core. Well, in this video, I'm going to show you how I fixed my heater problem by flushing my heater core, and how simple and easy it is for you to do exactly the same thing. That's what's coming up next here on Survival on Purpose. Welcome back to Survival on Purpose, your home for trustworthy information and gear reviews related to camping, survival, and general preparedness for regular folks. My name's Brian. Thanks for joining me in another installment of the Survival 4x4 Jeep Wrangler series, where I'm going to show you how I fixed my heater. But just to be clear, I don't think this just applies to a Jeep. This applies to pretty much anything that you're driving that's got a stopped up heater core. Before we do that, I got to give a big thanks to the folks at ClickBelts for sponsoring this video. ClickBelts is the longest running channel sponsor here at Survival on Purpose, and they make the belt that I wear every single day. It's my Click Belt 2-ply, and like all Click Belts, it features a genuine Austrian Cobra buckle that clicks when, and you can save 15% on your purchase at clickbelts.com by using the coupon code SOP15. So thanks again to the folks at ClickBelts for sponsoring this video. So real quickly before we get started, I'm going to go over the tools I used and the materials I used to fix my problem. It'll probably be really similar to what you're going to need, and some changes I would make based on my experience doing this. So let's do that, and then I'll show you how I fixed it. Okay, so like I said, I'm going to show you what I used. If you have to do this to your vehicle, you'll probably be using about the same stuff. The only difference I could think of is maybe your heater hoses might be a different size, so you might have to make some adjustments there. But speaking of heater hoses, the first tool I used was some way to cut the heater hose, and I happen to use this pipe cutter because I'm a plumber, but a good sharp knife will work. Just be careful. I also used a pair of channel locks. These are about big enough to get what I need done. You're gonna have to tighten up a couple of things. And I used a screwdriver. Actually, I used the nut driver portion of this screwdriver because most hose clamps, and you're gonna be using hose clamps, have a 5/16 nut on them. You can use a flathead screwdriver, as you can see, but trust me, a nut driver is gonna make it a whole lot easier. So that's the tools I used. Now, as far as other materials and equipment, first of all, you're going to need a water hose. Next, you're going to need some sort of sprayer with a hose thread on the end of it. And this is so you can adjust the flow, turn it on and off, and control it from where you're working at the Jeep or the vehicle, instead of having to run back to the hose faucet or have somebody else do it for you. So then you're going to need a way, obviously, to connect this water hose to your heater hoses, and depending upon where you get it, they may have different configurations of fittings, but at the end of the day, you want to go from a barb fitting that will fit inside your hose. Like I said, for mine, this is a 5/8. I have a 5/8 ID hoses, to a female swivel hose thread. You can get them without swivels. Just get the swivel, trust me. You make sure it has a hose washer in it. That allows you to screw this onto your sprayer head here and turn the water on and off, flushing through your heater core. And then you're going to want to get some splicers for putting it all back together. You're gonna need 2 of these, and you're gonna need 4 hose clamps. And you wanna make sure the hose clamps just fit the hose right. You're also gonna need a discharge hose to flush it through. Otherwise, you're gonna get water everywhere, and just make sure your hose clamp fits that pretty well. And then finally, I just used a bucket to try to capture some of the water I was flushing out to see what was in there, because I wanted to see it. So anyway, that's pretty much it, but there are a couple of changes I would make if I had to do this over again, so you can benefit from my experience by not making the same mistakes I did. Bottom line, the basics of this procedure are going to be, you're going to cut the 2 heater hoses, you're going to hook a water hose to one of them, you can hook a drain hose on the other, and you're going to flush water through it. And then you're going to reverse those and flush water back the other way, and do that a few times. So what I did was I bought one of these and a splicer, and every time I had to reverse the flow, I would have to take these things loose out of the hose, take the hose clamp loose, and swap them back and forth. It soon became very apparent to me that I could have saved myself a lot of time by just buying 2 of these and a male end hose end to go on here. That way, instead of swapping all this stuff out with the hose clamps, every time, I could just unscrew this off of one, unscrew the drain hose off the other, and screw them back on and continue. So that, I promise, it maybe cost you another $5 or $6. It'll save you a lot of time and a lot of skint knuckles. So that's pretty much everything you're going to need to get this job done. So let's just get to it. I'll show you how easy it is to flush your heater core. Okay, I'm taking you off the tripod for a minute, so I'm going to try to hold it steady. But basically, these hoses here, this one and this one, are the 2 hoses which go back there on the firewall into the heater core, which is back over on that side behind the firewall. So I'm not sure, honestly, which one is the return and which one is the supply. It doesn't really matter because we're going to flush it both ways. So We can even disconnect them here and somewhere down there where it's kind of hard to get to. What I'm going to do is just go ahead and cut both of these. I've got the couplings to put in there to put them back in place, and that will allow me to really flush it really easily and simply without having to crawl around and disconnect a bunch of stuff down there. So, okay, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to temporarily remove this little line, which I think goes to the PCV valve. Either way, it's a vent off the top of the valve cover. Just gonna move it over out of the way now, so I have room to access these. Then this has got a little brace right here. I'm just gonna leave that in place, and I'm gonna cut these about right here somewhere. So, oh man, I got that in my face. That's not good. Let it drain down. Whatever little bit drains out will be fine. I'm gonna cut the other one. It did not taste good. I'm gonna cut it a little bit further so there's no confusion as to which one goes back with where. Now, let's start putting it together. We're gonna start with, we'll just start flushing it this way. So we'll put it right in, put the hose clamp on, and then put it right in there, and then just tighten up the hose clamp. I've got a screwdriver that actually has a nut driver on the end of it, which will make it a little simpler. So just tighten that up, like so. On the other hose, just take the 5/8, put the hose clamp on there first, Brian, like so. Hope you can see some of this. See the coupling on here. Tighten that one up, and then this is a 7/8 inch OD by 5/8 inch ID clear hose. We're going to take this clear hose and connect it to the other line that does not have the garden hose adapter on it, and it's a little tighter than the hose, than the heater hose, but we got it on there now, and we'll just tighten this up. Had a hand sprayer with the thread on the end of it, so I was able to have a valve here. I've got the water turned on to the hose, and this will allow me to control the flow through there. So this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to start. You can see it coming up here already. See it coming out. So we're going to flush this thing for a few minutes. See what kind of junk comes out of it. Let's see if we can figure out what's in here. Let's see if we can see any kind of junk in there. You can see it now down in there. This is kind of stuff that's in the bottom. And we're going to keep flushing. Okay, so this is the 5th bucket. And I don't know if you can see down that stuff down. Let me see if I can just pour some of this out where you can see what's. So you can see kind of all the stuff that's in there now. It's kind of sandy, gritty stuff, flaking. Okay, so I just want to show you some of the stuff I got out of it. And this is kind of caught it. I wish I thought to do this when I first started, because some of it just got dumped on the ground. But this is just some of the stuff that came out. Some pretty good sized stuff. And I think the pores in those heater cores are kind of small. The channels are small, so this could definitely cause a blockage. So now, and what I did, by the way, after about 2 5-gallon buckets full, I started pulsing it, because my mechanic friend told me that they have a machine that does this when they flush coolant systems, that actually pulses the water through there. So I was just squeezing and letting go of the little hand spray here and try to simulate that as best I could in the old driveway version. And so now what I'm going to do anyway, it's starting to get dark, so I'm going to just do this, and I'll show you the results in a minute. But I'm just going to swap these around. I'm going to reverse the water flow and back flush it back the other direction, and then we'll put it back together. I'll show you that, and then we'll do a test and see if the heat seems to be a little better. Okay, so it's getting dark, but you see I've got it back together again. I've got the 2 barb couplings in there with hose clamps on both the hoses. By the way, those are 5/8 barb couplings. Home Depot calls them a splicer. And we're about to crank it up and make sure we don't have any leaks and see if the heat works. Okay, so that's the steam you're seeing here. Looks like it's just from the coolant that's gotten on the block as it's warming up. Hopefully it'll stop. If it doesn't stop, then you have a problem, but it should stop once it all kind of burns off. Yeah, so I don't see any leaks anywhere, so that's good. So I'm going to go ahead and just top the coolant off. and give it a few minutes to make sure that it burns off and it warms up, and we'll see what happens. So the electric fan kicked on, so I know the temperature is coming up a little bit. So, well, I'm very happy to report that the operation was a success, and now I have toasty warm air blowing out of all 4 of my heater vents in the Jeep. So if you have a vehicle, it doesn't have to be a Jeep, but if you have a vehicle that you're having an issue with the air temperature coming out of your vents, you might have a stopped up heater core. And if you do, as you saw, it's a really easy fix. So hopefully this has been a helpful video. If you like the content here on Survival on Purpose, I invite you to subscribe to the channel. And if you want to make sure you don't miss any of these videos in case they decide to cancel me, because you just never know these days, do you? I invite you to go to survivalonpurpose.com/subscribe. Get signed up for my weekly email newsletter. Every week, just once a week, I'll send you an email with any news, offers, or deals I think you might be interested in. An occasional rambling, maybe an older video or two, and we'll be able to stay in touch just in case. So I really appreciate the support once again. My name's Brian. You're watching Survival on Purpose. Remember, survival's not an accident, so be prepared. Stay warm. I'll see you next time.